better when our clients do better.
Wow, you really do look out for your clients.
That's because our top priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. It might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments and securities involve the risk of loss.
Do you struggle with occasional nerve aches in your hands or feet? Try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive contains B-complex vitamins and alpha-lipoic acid to relieve nerve aches, weakness, and discomfort. Learn more at nervivehealth.com.
KCBS News Time, 9:18. 6-day forecast is coming up. But first, we're going to head over to your local Honda dealer's traffic center to update your drive with Kim. Yeah, a couple things. We're still looking at pretty miserable traffic conditions. If you're heading south of Gilroy on South 101, be aware there's major delays in front of you between Highway 25 and 129. This report brought to you by Lucky and Lucky, California. This is that concrete pour. They were doing this yesterday, too, where there's only 2 lanes there, and one of the 2 lanes is shut down. This concrete pour goes on till about 10 o'clock, but we're looking at traffic backed up about 4 miles in the area. It's taking folks about a half an hour to get through that one traffic trying to get down to 129 on South 101. All right, we are also looking a little bit better now. Finally, in Oakland, they have cleared the crash coming off of westbound 980 onto South 880. So traffic just a little bit sluggish there, I'm seeing, with the Chilton Auto Body collision cam, but we're largely recovered. A new crash has come in for the Peninsula area. This is on southbound 680 near Industrial. It looks like the vehicles are all off to the side, but we're waiting to see how this shakes out. It's a first report, so CHP is just still heading to the scene. And also, something is blocking lanes up on northbound 680 coming up to the 580 interchange. Not sure if this is a stall or debris, but northbound 680 before you get to 580, we do have a little bit of a hang-up starting to slow down Ridge. Well, 5 p.m. emails from the boss, surprise visits from the in-laws, or are you missing soccer cleats? Let Lucky California help you out with home delivery powered by Instacart. Right now you can save $10 when you spend $50. Use promo code LUCKYCA10. You can place your order at shop.luckysuper. Your next update is at 9:28 on the traffic leader, KCBS.
Mancini Sleep World 6-day weather forecast, introducing Sleep Match exclusively at Mancini Sleep World. Here's KPIX5 meteorologist Derek.
It's going to be cooler today if you are inland. We've been doing low to mid-90s for much of the last several days. And today, it's a quick drop, like 10 degrees from yesterday to today. That means daytime highs for most of our inland locations are low to mid-80s. Santa Rosa, Concord, Livermore, San Jose, and in the along the Bay shoreline, temperatures will be in the mid to upper 70s. Whether it's East Bay or along the Peninsula in the city, won't get out of the 60s all day today. It's going to be a bit breezy near the water. That's how we're doing that cool down. So a stronger onshore flow means through the Delta, it's a bit breezier today than yesterday was, but it shouldn't be anything too significant. And we're just going to keep that pattern going for the next 6 days. I'm meteorologist Darren Peck with your KCBS First Alert Forecast.
Traffic and weather together on the 8s and All News 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS.
Are you the parent of a college-age student who is trying to break the chain of failure? Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offers on-campus and online options for students who are struggling to achieve success in college. A short-term bridge experience at Landmark strengthen the academic and self-advocacy skills needed to stay focused in college and beyond. Let Landmark College help your students discover their untapped potential and their learning ability. Visit landmark.edu.
Progressive presents Don't Do It Yourself.
Okay, reading the manual.
Using a Phillips screwdriver, klein dit je houden, bis die fit zit.
What was that?
Klein dit je houden, bis die fit zit.
This sounds like another language to me.
Okay, maybe we should bundle our home and auto with Progressive. We could save big and pay someone to do it for us.
Maybe. What's next?
Next, Pony Osteoporose and Cara.
Tell them what?
Save when bundling home and auto with Progressive and use the money to, not do it yourself. Coverage from Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and third-party insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
News time, 9:22. That is time for Ask an Expert. Every weekday at about this time, we give you direct access to top experts in various fields related to the pandemic. Earlier this week, the Biden administration released 2 long-awaited reports, both focused on understanding and treating long COVID.
To answer your questions, joined live on the KCBS Ring Central Newsline by Dr. John Schwartzberg, clinical professor.
get it. What it means is because everybody is in that same boat. There have been a variety of ideas. We're finally honing down to a pretty standard definition of people who have persistent symptomatology after having an episode of COVID that goes on at least for 2 or 3 months afterwards. So it's prolonged symptomatology after a COVID episode. We've known about post-viral syndromes like this for a long time. With influenza, for example, it's not uncommon for people not to have their energy back for 6, maybe even 8 weeks. But with COVID, we're seeing something a little bit different, where people continue to have symptomatology and a variety of different kinds of symptoms that persist much longer than that.
So the Biden administration has released a couple of reports on long COVID. What do they suggest about the administration's priorities?
Well, the priorities really are to get some good science, some really solid science about this, and consider putting some money behind that. It's been very frustrating up until really the late spring that there hasn't been a lot of NIH funding for the studies that we really need, and now that's coming through. So the first thing is that we're going to be getting a lot of studies spilling out now over the next several months. We're all some of the fruits from the investments that we made in the early spring. So I think that what we're going to, a year from now, or even 6 months from now, we're going to have a lot better science in terms of what this entity is, or what all of these symptoms represent in terms of what causes it. What can we do to help people get well more quickly? These are the answers that I think will be forthcoming.
Yeah, I think that's the question. Once you've identified it, well, once you have a definition, now you treat it.
That's right. You know, and it may not be an it, but what I mean by that is that there may be multiple causes. So one person may have persistent symptomatology because the virus damaged certain parts of their nervous system. Other people may have persistent symptomatology because the inflammatory response damaged blood vessels. Other people for reasons that we don't even know. So there may be a variety of causes for people having persistent symptomatology. Long COVID may not be the most fruitful way of understanding what causes it and therefore understanding how we can intervene. So I think we're going to see a lot of studies coming out now showing that, for example, people we know now are at higher risk of blood clots, including heart attacks and strokes, up to a year later after having an episode of COVID. That may have a very specific cause and something that we could pretty easily intervene about. So, again, lots of information will be forthcoming.
You know, and that you mentioned more studies. We have a couple of recent ones, one of which sort of tried to focus on the percentage of get long COVID. Would knowing that be helpful in treating it or into trying to figure out who might get it?
Well, I think what will be very helpful is to understand what this really means going forward. By that, I'm talking about if let's say, for example, a study yesterday from the Netherlands suggested about 12%, 1 out of 8 people who had COVID developed persistent symptomatology. Well, that's an enormous number of people when you talk about the millions and millions of people who are getting COVID. So it will help us plan for what we need from our medical system to deal with all of these people who have persistent symptoms going not just next year, but perhaps over the next several years. And we'll have to plan financially for this as a society, where we need to devote to treating people who have persistent symptomatology.
I'm curious. We know that if you're suffering from severe symptoms, you're more likely to be older, and young children don't have as severe symptoms. Is there some sort of similar difference when it comes to long COVID?
Well, we know people who have a bad episode of COVID have a higher chance of getting persistent symptoms, long COVID. That's been fairly well established. Unfortunately, we see people who can develop long COVID after a very mild infection. There have even been reports suggesting that people who have asymptomatic infections can develop persistent symptoms following that episode of asymptomatic infection. And also, children are not immune to getting long COVID. It's not as common as we see in adults, but we do see long COVID certainly occurring in children, including very young children. So this is a problem that really spans the entire life spectrum from very young to very old.
You are listening to Ask an Expert with Dr. John Swartzberg, clinical professor emeritus at the UC Berkeley School of Public Health. He's an infectious disease expert. If you've got a question, just email that to us at askus@kcbsradio.com. That is askus@kcbsradio.com. All right, doctor, we're going to turn to some of our listener questions now, and you were just talking about long COVID in kids. So this listener is wondering whether they should be worried about children getting some form of long COVID and whether new boosters available this fall might be safer and prevent some of these lingering side effects.
Well, we hope that there's some preliminary data that suggests that immunizations do help prevent against developing long COVID, and we hope to have more data to support that. If that's the case, then that's just going to be a further argument for making sure that everybody is up to date with their vaccination schedule. Should parents be worried about their child developing long COVID? Well, the answer is yes. It is of concern, not just for children, but for everybody. For example, I'm certainly not in the childhood group. I'm in the old age group, and I don't really worry that much any longer about being hospitalized or dying from COVID. I think the chances of that are extremely small given the fact that I'm up to date with my vaccine. And